You just built your first conditional access policy and you've got MFA enforced across your organization. That's a huge win, but what about legacy apps that can't handle MFA? And what if you want different rules when users are in the office versus remote? And most importantly, how do you put guardrails in place so you don't accidentally lock yourself out? That's exactly what this video is about. Real-world conditional access policies, practical Microsoft Entra ID scenarios, and the safeguards you need before things get more advanced. Hey everyone, I'm Travis and welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of a series on Microsoft Entra ID, MFA, and conditional access. In the first part, we talked about why passwords alone just aren't enough and enabled security defaults. In the second part, we created our first conditional access policy from scratch, tested it in report-only mode, and enforced it safely. If you missed those, check out the links in the description below. In this video, we're building on that foundation and stepping into more advanced conditional access policies that almost any organization will need. We'll cover break glass accounts, blocking legacy authentication, restricting access with named locations, and adding stricter controls for privileged users. And we're validating everything using the What If tool before we turn anything on. But before we jump in, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend or colleague. It really helps this channel grow. If you want to go deeper, check out my courses. The links are in the description below. And a huge thanks to my channel members. Your support is appreciated. All right, back to it. Before we build any new conditional access policies, we need to talk about something critical: the emergency access account, also known as a break glass account. A break glass account is excluded from all conditional access policies, and it exists for one reason: getting back into your tenant when something goes wrong. Think about this scenario. You accidentally create a policy that locks out all global admins. You try to sign in to fix it, but you can't because you're affected by the very policy you created. Now you're locked out of your own environment. Yes, Microsoft support may help, but that could be slow, and it's definitely not something you want to rely on in an emergency. A properly configured break glass account avoids that situation. And it's not just conditional access mistakes you need to worry about. Phones break, people leave, devices get lost, SIM swapping happens, even mobile carriers have outages. If your MFA method depends on any of that, you've got risks. A break glass account gives you a way back in. There are a few key rules you need to follow for this to work properly and maintain security. First, make it a cloud-only account using the onmicrosoft.com domain. Don't tie it to a specific user, and don't sync it from on-prem Active Directory. If your on-prem environment or sync breaks, you'll still need access. And also make sure the credentials don't expire. Next, use a very long, complex password and store it securely offline, not in a password manager that requires MFA, something like a printed copy in a safe or secured with a trusted individual. Even better, use passwordless options like a FIDO2 security key or certificate-based authentication. The emergency access account must be excluded from every conditional access policy in your tenant. And yes, all users includes the break glass account. So you'll need to explicitly exclude it every time in every policy. We'll walk through that in the demo. And finally, monitor it. Set up an alert so any sign-in attempt triggers an immediate notification. If this account is used, something has already gone wrong. You need to know about it as soon as possible. Microsoft recommends having at least 2 break glass accounts. In the demo, we'll create one using a password and exclude it from the policy, but you can use stronger authentication methods if needed. Once the break glass account is in place, we can move on to what's arguably the highest impact policy after enforcing MFA, blocking legacy authentication. If you leave legacy authentication enabled, attackers can bypass MFA using older protocols that don't support it. We're talking about protocols like SMTP, POP3, IMAP, and basic authentication. These were built before MFA existed, so there's no second factor. If an attacker has a password, they're in. The fix is straightforward. Create a conditional access policy that targets all users and all cloud apps. Filter for legacy authentication and block access completely, no exceptions. In a modern Microsoft 365 environment, legacy authentication should not be used. Next up, we'll make our policy smarter using named locations. Named locations in Microsoft Entra ID let you define trusted networks like your office and use them in conditional access rules. A very common scenario is requiring MFA only when users are outside of the corporate network. Inside the office, users are already behind trusted infrastructure, so some organizations reduce friction here. But from anywhere else, MFA is required. To set that up, you'll need the public IP addresses of your trusted locations. You can grab that by visiting a What's My IP Address website from inside your office network. Just keep in mind, some organizations have multiple IPs and multiple office locations. Now let's talk about your most important accounts with privileged roles. Global administrators, security administrators, and other elevated roles are prime targets. If one of these accounts gets compromised, it's game over. These accounts need stronger controls than standard users. So in this policy, we target users with privileged directory roles and require MFA on every sign-in, no exception, no trusted locations, no device-based exclusions. Every login gets verified. In a future video, we'll take this even further with authentication strengths and phishing-resistant MFA, which is the gold standard for protecting admin accounts. All right, let's head into the Azure portal or Entra Admin Center. You'll need global admin permissions to follow along. We'll start by creating a break glass account, then build out 3 conditional access policies and validate everything using the What If tool before enabling the policies. All right, here we are in the Azure portal. We'll start by going to Entra ID and creating a break glass or emergency access account. And remember, this account should be cloud only. It should not be synchronized from on-prem Windows AD. Go to Entra ID and open Users under Manage. Select New User and then choose Create New User. Give the account a name that clearly identifies it as an emergency access account, something like breakglass-admin-01. Whatever the name of the account is, use a non-descriptive UPN that doesn't reveal its purpose to an attacker. Avoid obvious names. I know we shouldn't rely on security by obscurity, but a unique name will make the account less of a target. You don't want to use just break glass, for example. Uncheck auto-generate password, and then give it a long, very complex password. Make a note of this and keep it in a safe space, offline storage, for example. You'll need access to this password if there's an emergency. If you store the password in a password vault, be sure that vault isn't protected with Entra MFA, because if there's a problem with MFA, you may not be able to log into that password safe to get the password you need to resolve the issue. And one more very important thing. Even if you exclude this account from conditional access policies, Microsoft has implemented mandatory MFA for admin portals, like the Entra ID and Azure portal. You'll need to configure MFA when you initially log into these portals. The recommendation from Microsoft is to configure a FIDO2 passkey or certificate-based authentication on that break glass account. More information can be found at a link in the description below. We'll go next to Properties. Fill in additional information as needed. Go to Assignments. Add a role. And we'll select Global Administrator. This is the highest privilege available in Entra ID. Go next to Review and Create. Verify the new user has been created and appears in the list. Log in and test the account. You want to make sure it's working correctly before you need it. Also, if you have Sentinel, Entra ID, Identity Protection, or another security tool, you should also set up a notification when this account signs in. We want to make sure we're aware anytime it's used. In the next step, we're going to exclude this account from MFA. Before we create any new policies, let's go back to the policy we built in the last video and add the break glass account as an exclusion. Let's go to Conditional Access, go to Policies, and we'll open the Require MFA for All Users policy. This is the one that was created in the last video. We'll view and edit. Under Assignments, select Users and go to the Exclusion tab. When we enabled this policy in the previous video, we left the option to add the current user as an exclusion. So you may have an account in here already. You can leave that account in as well, but then it will be excluded from MFA. Or you can remove that account and add in the new break glass account. That's what I'll do in this example. I'm going to first remove the account that I don't want excluded anymore, and then we'll add the user we just created. And for this example, I do not want to exclude the current user. We already have our break glass account excluded. Click Save to update the policy. And now we've excluded the break glass account from the Require MFA for All Users policy. Don't forget, every conditional access policy you create going forward should have the break glass account explicitly excluded. This is not optional. A single policy that enforces MFA on the break glass account defeats its entire purpose. Next, let's build the second policy to block legacy authentication. This is one of the most impactful policies you can add to your tenant. From Conditional Access, select New Policy and give it a name. For this example, we'll call it Block Legacy Authentication. Under Assignments, set Users to All Users, and then exclude the break glass account. Under Target Resources, select All Resources. Go to Conditions, select Client Apps, and toggle Configured to Yes. Uncheck Browser and Mobile Apps. Leave the Legacy Authentication clients checked. This will apply to Exchange ActiveSync, as well as other legacy clients like POP, SMTP, and IMAP. We'll select Done. Under Access Controls, select Block Access. Make sure Enable Policy is Report Only. And again, because we already have an exclusion, we don't need to exclude the current user. Once we have that configured, we can create. After some time, open sign-in logs and filter by client app to show legacy authentication attempts. We covered that in the previous video. That will provide information on what will be blocked with this policy. If you see attempts, you may need to find where those attempts are coming from and move them to a different protocol before enabling the policy. Next, let's set up a named location and build a policy that requires MFA for sign-ins from outside a trusted network. In Conditional Access, select Named Locations under Manage. Select IP Range Location. Give it a descriptive name such as Corporate Network Trusted. We'll select Mark as Trusted Location. Next, we'll enter the public IP addresses or range of addresses for the corporate network. Add additional IP addresses or ranges of IP addresses as needed. Once done, click Create. That saves the trusted named location. Now return to Policies and select New Policy. Give it a name. This one will be called Require MFA Outside Trusted Network. Under Assignments, set Users to All Users. And here again, we'll exclude the break glass account. Under Target Resources, select All Resources. Let's go to Conditions. Select Not Configured under Locations. We'll toggle the configuration to Yes. Under Include, select any network or location. So that will include all networks. Now go to Exclude. We have two options here. We can say all trusted networks and locations. So for example, if I go to Select, I have two locations marked as trusted. With the first option, all trusted locations we configure will be added automatically. With Select Networks and Locations, we have to add them manually. So for this example, we can add the location we just configured. If we updated the IP list in that trusted location, those would be included as well. But if we add a new trusted location, we would have to come back into this policy and add it. That's compared to the first option, where anything we marked as trusted will be added. We'll leave it at selected for this example. Now let's go to Grant under Access Controls. And here we'll require MFA. We'll select that. Be sure the policy is set to read only. And here again, we don't need to exclude the current user. And we'll create. Keep in mind, if your organization has multiple office locations, add all trusted ranges to the name location before enforcing this policy. Users at any unlisted location will be required to complete MFA. The last policy we'll build in this video targets privileged directory roles with stricter MFA requirements. Admins, for example, should always require MFA. In Conditional Access, select New Policy. We'll give it a name. This example will use require MFA for privilege roles. Under assignments, select users and groups, and then select directory roles. From here, we'll add global administrator, security administrator, exchange administrator, and any other privilege role relevant to your organization. The Microsoft Managed policy includes 14 roles. That would be a good starting point if you're not sure what to add. I'll leave a link to the list in the comment section below. The video will pause here and come back once they're added. All right, once you've added the privilege roles, let's move to Exclude. And here we'll add that break glass account again. Under Target Resources, select All Resources. We'll leave conditions unconfigured so the policy applies regardless of the location. Even if they're logging in from a trusted location, we still want MFA to apply. Under Access Controls, select Grant, then Require Multi-Factor Authentication. Here again, we'll set the policy to report only, and again, we don't need to exclude the current user. And we'll create. Now those privileged roles require MFA to log in. Now that we have our 4 policies in place, let's use the What If tool to validate how they apply to different users and scenarios. In Conditional Access, select Policies, then select What If at the top of the screen. For the first test, we'll use a standard user account. We'll sign into SharePoint Online. We're just using that as an example. Any Microsoft Online service will work. Device platform is Windows. We'll select Browser for the client app. We'll add one of the IP addresses from the trusted location. And anytime we use an IP address, we also have to specify a country. And now we'll run What If. We can see the results at the bottom. The screen layout isn't great. This test did not pass. The goal of the Require MFA Outside Trusted Network policy was to not enforce MFA if the user is inside the corporate network. But the Require MFA for All Users policy still applied. And in this case, the user will have an MFA prompt. When there are multiple controls, they get combined. That's why the user still requires MFA, even if they're logging in from a trusted location. Also, keep in mind that the block action will take priority over other policies. We have 2 options if we don't want the MFA prompt for users on the trusted network. We could disable the Require MFA for All Users policy. With that disabled, we'll rely on Require MFA Outside Trusted Network instead. Those 2 policies were the same, except Require MFA Outside Trusted Network had the trusted location exclusion. Or another option, we could add the trusted network exclusion in the Require MFA for All Users policy and disable the trusted location policy. For this example, I'm going to turn on the Require MFA Outside the Trusted Network policy and then turn the Require MFA for All Users to off. Again, they're the same except for the trusted location exclusion, and the Require MFA Outside the Trusted Network has a better description in the name. So let's first turn on Require MFA Outside the Trusted Network. Here again, we don't need to exclude the current user, and this is set to on. Next, let's open Require MFA for All Users. And instead of setting this to report only, I'm just going to disable it altogether, turn it to off. You may need to refresh for the state to update. Let's run that What If scenario again. We'll select our user, and this is just a normal user account. We'll use the same settings as the last test. And select What If. Okay, so now no policy matches. Let's go to policies that will not apply. And this shows Require MFA Outside Trusted Network will not apply because of location. What happens if we remove the location? Let's reset this and try it again. We'll select the same user and target resource. Device platform is Windows and client app is browser. For this example, we won't supply an IP address or country. Let's run What If. All right, so now the policy Require MFA Outside Trusted Network applied, and it will require a multi-factor authentication. Let's go to policies that will not apply. We turned require MFA for all users off. The client wasn't using legacy authentication, and the user doesn't have a privileged role. Next, let's see what happens with a privileged account. And by the way, as I'm testing this, occasionally reset doesn't work. I have to exit and go back into What If. We'll select a privileged account, demo admin for this example. We'll select the same cloud app, SharePoint Online. The device platform is Windows and the client tab is browser. And for this example, we'll see what happens when they log in from the trusted location. So we'll add that IP address and country and run What If. Great. Require MFA for privileged roles did apply, and it's going to require multi-factor authentication, even though authentication is coming from a trusted location. All right, one more test. Let's see what happens with the break glass account. We'll reset, or you can close What If and open it back up. Let's select the break glass account. This is the one we set up previously. And again, we'll log into SharePoint, Windows and browser again. And for this example, we won't come in through a trusted location. If we go What If, nothing applies. So that's what we want. The break glass account should be excluded from all policies. If we go to policies that will not apply, the reason for the first one is it's not enabled. For the other three, it's users and groups. That's because the account was excluded from users and groups. The What If tool tests logins against policies in their current state, including report-only policies. It's a reliable way to validate policy logic before switching anything to on. Go ahead and run through more scenarios before turning your policies on. Once the policies have been tested with the What If tool and the sign-in logs reviewed, you're ready to move the policies from report only to on. We covered a lot in this one. We set up a secure break glass account and excluded it from all policies. Then we built 3 high-impact conditional access policies, blocking legacy authentication, restricting access by location, and applying stricter controls to privileged accounts. And most importantly, we used the What If tool to test everything before we enabled them. If you followed along, you now have a solid real-world conditional access foundation in Microsoft Entra ID. But we're not done yet. Next up, we're diving into MFA methods. We'll review SMS, the Authenticator app, and FIDO2 keys so you can choose the right balance of security and usability. Thanks for watching. If this helped you out, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.